G'day mate, and welcome back to Captain History with me, JD. In today's episode, we need to do something about diesel. I just need to stretch diesel just a little bit further. I was planning for a complete rebuild at some stage, but I wanted to put it off for a little while longer. And, oh my god, yep, okay. Problem is we're a little bit short on diesel. I've spent a couple of months, couple of years just checking out system, making sure that I knew exactly what the cause was that pushed me over the edge, because I know I've been on the edge for a while, but I wanted to just double check and confirm I knew exactly what pushed us over the edge. Also want to make sure I had enough time to potentially pull down part of diesel and rebuild it and decide exactly what we had to do. So before we get into that, I need to, as always, thank those that have chosen to support the channel. Thank them for becoming a YouTube member, even if some of them can drive really well and some of them can't. And this driver is in the 50-50 pile because he slammed on the brakes a couple of times randomly for no reason whatsoever. But you see, today we need to thank Ron Smits for choosing to become a YouTube member, choosing to support the channel, choosing to make sure that I don't have to run mid-roll ads during the video at all, because I have wonderful members like Ron choosing to support the channel. And signing up, becoming a member, starts off $1 per month. Consider it, please. Very, very much appreciate it. And means I don't have to worry about mid-rolls. Words are hard. All right. So thank you, Ron, again for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. Before we get into dealing with our oil problem, let's still deal with this guy. So this guy is officially the worst worker in the colony. A number of episodes ago, we put down this guy to just harvest out the last of the oil, and I only realized he was done when I was looking at adding more digging zones and everything else, and realized that the oil node here was gone entirely, and then realized that he was still sitting here with this turned off, because I turned this off because we didn't need to know it was low. We knew it was low. We were planning to just empty out the last of the oil, but it turns out when you turn that off, it doesn't tell you when he's out, which is a whole separate story. So I've had one worker using 1.5 maintenance per minute, doing absolutely nothing for I don't know how long. So officially the most useless worker in the colony. Control, shift, yeah. So we're gonna make that go away. All right, that's the first thing I want to take care of. Second one is this one. This is complaining all the time that we have too much animal feed and nowhere to put it. And I realize that. Alerts, please. I don't want to know if you're full. So what I've done is I've actually taken the animal feed and we're just going to route it over here and plug it into this coal line. We've already set up these boilers to use animal feed, should they get animal feed. And I know we're only running a 60 belt, and a 60 belt's probably not going to be fast enough. But realistically, as it's just kicking out the excess, it should be fast enough to not let the system back up. Speaking of letting the system back up, it was pointed out to me in the comments section that maybe I was running some slow belts down here, which shouldn't be slow. The last 3 could be slow, but the rest of them have to be upgraded because each one of these machines use 18 apiece, so the last 3 is going to use basically 60. Therefore, all the belts prior to that need to go faster. So with that done, it hasn't changed it because it's still backed up. But you know, it's about making sure that it would run correctly should we actually need to eat all the bread. But in the meantime, these guys can keep processing. They will keep processing for quite some time. Our ethanol reserves are half empty, which I should bring alarm bells, but realistically it's because we've filled up that with plastic. Now that's full of plastic and that's full of medical supplies. We've cut back on our ethanol usage, which means this should refill with no issue whatsoever. The animal feed's getting kicked out, and in theory that's going to clear the backlog. All right, next thing we need to talk about is, some of the things I did to save some fuel. So all the way back here, we made a concrete build a very, very long time ago. And with that concrete build, it brings in 2 different resources. It brings in both slag and also rock. And the concrete mixers are told to use slag as their primary with gravel as their secondary, okay? And buried in here, I actually have a little balancer, which says, hey, look, use the slag, which we've crushed in a crushed slag first. And then if there's some issue with our slag supply, then we can use the rock that we've crushed into gravel as, you know, the main item for our concrete mixers. At the same time, we also bring the gravel, providing we're not using it for the concrete mixers, up here and convert it to sand, because we do need sand as part of the concrete mix. Well, the concrete slabs. So it brings the gravel up here, which we crush into sand, and therefore sand goes off and feeds the system. At the same time, we use this little loose storage container here as a splitter to, well, split the two apart. You know, make sure 50% comes in here with some sort of backup, with 50% going there. Now you have export off. I think I can set you to keep full. I'm not sure. We'll find out. So, this had gone and filled up this giant container. Filled up this giant container with sand a long time ago. And then the trucks were picking up the sand and driving it around the map and dumping it into here. Which is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. That is a legitimate way of doing it. Problem is, it's using a lot of diesel. So, I connected the two with a belt. Now, it's not a very neat belt. I fully admit that. But it does travel halfway across the base through a whole bunch of infrastructure and over to here. And it does the job. Now, it's only bringing in 60 sand per minute, but by the same token, we're only making 48 sand per minute out of this system. So there's not much point in upgrading the belt. Eventually, this will empty. The only reason this is full is, well, whilst the belt was being placed, the truck stopped exporting. So we're just burning through what's in here, and then eventually it'll be down to 48 per minute. 48 per minute is enough to run one of these guys, just one. The second one is relying on glass, recycled glass pretty much, which, providing we have recyclables here, this bounces between like 25 and like 80 recycled glass. Also depends a lot on what edicts I'm running. Currently I have all the unity in the world, so we've got recycling up to 80%. So it's very, very temperamental, but we're keeping up mostly with our glass production. I'm really considering, between this episode and the next episode, and you might just come back and find out it's been magically done, that I double the glass smelter, which means doubling, well, having a second exhaust scrubber, because this exhaust scrubber only covers 5 of these guys, and I actually have 6 here. We're not running one of the coppers, so it's okay currently. It's running through all of it, but I'm considering adding a second exhaust scrubber, 2 more glass smelters. Therefore, we can definitely keep up with our exports and our imports. Also, possibly double the contract, because there's nothing stopping us, contracts-wise. We have a 6-module ship. If I add another ship, we just have this unity cost per ship. So I could have 2 ships doing the glass contract and bringing coal without an issue. So I'm really, really considering adding that to the mix. But to do that, I'd have to double this glass. Okay. Last thing I want to mention is the coal belt. The coal belt that came up to here. Up to here. We already upgraded that to full speed to make sure this stayed full. But at the same time, I was having them export from here. I'm going to set this up to there. I have an alarm. Notify me if greater than 50%. Okay. We're having the trucks bring the coal from here and actually drive it over here and dump it into this box or this box, but mainly this box for steel and iron production. Well, I've decided, you know what, same story. I'm just going to run a belt. It is going to use 28 kilowatts worth of power, just like the sand belt used 35 kilowatts worth of power. So there is some sort of power cost, but power is much cheaper for us personally right now than the diesel costs. So I decided, you know what, we'll do that. We'll do that. That'll fix the problem. And it's only bringing across 60 coal per minute, and that's why I've set up the notifications, because I need to know whether we have more than the coal we're using for this system, plus excess coal for this system currently coming in before I upgrade the belt. Because technically that uses 60 if it's running at full speed, and that uses 60. So in theory, I don't actually have enough coal being belted across. So something we need to keep in mind as well. Last thing I need to mention is, I think that was it actually. I think that's it. We've got a couple of new digging groups and that sort of stuff, just like, you know, clearing out this corner of the hill and the mountain. We're just like leveling this out, literally. Actually, I do need to double check. What? Dirt. Oh, you need to have exports to that tower and that tower. All right, that should fix that problem. Yeah, I'm literally, and I want to delete that box. Literally just, yeah, having them just clear out the corner of the map, just digging flat. I'm pretty sure I want to take the whole island down to a flat level 2. It might take a minute, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be the goal. All right, so today we need to talk about oil. And oil Oil is actually, it's right on the borderline, okay? Honestly, it's right on the borderline. We're just almost making enough diesel. Except, what actually pushed us over the edge was something I didn't consider. And you might assume that it is, there we go, that diesel bucket. That diesel right there is empty. You might assume it was a lack of crude oil coming in. It's not actually a lack of crude oil coming in, but I do want to talk about this cargo ship for 1 second. It can't import and export fast enough because this module's holding us back. Because it's a small module, where are we? Cargo docks. So it's a unit module. So a unit module loads the ship. A medium loads 30% faster, whereas the fluid mediums load 50% faster. Big difference. So the ship's basically ready to go, except it's still waiting for me to load in the last of the vehicle parts. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do across the board upgrade right across the whole ship. Make sure that it's no longer an issue. It does mean that we're going to have large fluid modules, but the large fluid modules unload the ship 100% the speed of the standard fluid modules. But that means we should be able to get crude oil in a little bit faster. Now, like I said, it's not actually a crude oil issue because this ship still has crude oil on it. These tanks still have crude oil on it, or in them. That little pump that we removed was still technically up until it died, providing crude oil. So it wasn't a crude oil problem. It's just a fact that we've gone through too much. We've just pushed things over the limit. And the biggest cause was actually the 2 cargo ships we added. Each one of these need a certain amount of diesel per round trip. You're back. Yeah, they need a certain amount of diesel per round trip, 136. And as they take about 5 months, that's somewhere between 25 and 30 diesel per month when you average it out. Well, after adding 2 of them, that's an extra 50 to 60 diesel every month added to the calculation, which was just a tiny bit too much and pushed us over the limit. Now, in theory, I could add up here at the captain's office. Where are we? I could add industrial edicts. I could add fuel saver to just bring us back down the line. Just a little bit. The catch is I've already got them both running. Not because it saves us diesel, but it basically gives them like a 15% extra fuel tank, which means they refuel less often, which means they're more efficient. This is one of the reasons we're running the overload trucks. You know, it costs us a lot more maintenance. I'm running them. Okay, so we're running the maintenance reducer because I save resources. That sounds like a no-brainer. It only costs a little bit of uni, and I still have plenty of uni, and I, as you've seen, have used uni for like 99% of all construction. So that's not really an issue. I'm running the overloaded trucks because they carry 15% extra plus another 15%, 30% extra. It does increase the maintenance of the trucks, but not a lot of your maintenance is trucks. A lot of your maintenance is buildings. Every building, don't forget, has a maintenance cost, except the one I happen to click on. Every building has some sort of maintenance cost, and you put down a lot of buildings. Trucks have a fairly high maintenance cost, but you don't have a lot of trucks, so it's not that much of an issue. So I run the overloaded trucks. It costs me more maintenance, but we get an extra 30% load out of them every single time, which means they're more efficient. Again, we run the fuel saver to save 30% extra fuel, so they're 30% more efficient. It means hopefully I can avoid this extremely busy more often. And, well, I run plenty of food because it gives me bonus uni, 2.5 uni. And when I have spare uni hanging around, I'll turn on recycling, and I won't do the last one because that's just not worth it. But I'll generally keep recycling 1 running, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, depending on how much spare uni I'm floating with. Currently, because we've actually turned off the oil rig entirely, which, by the way, is still full of crude oil, so should we run short, our standard cargo ship could go pick some up. And with the new contracts, I've actually turned off the coal mine, and there's a second coal mine here, which I probably want to upgrade. But yeah, so with us adding the 2 cargo ships going back and forth, also last episode, we took the battleship out and we went and played a little bit, and each time we do that, depending on how far we travel, it does use up to 200 diesel. So we did a few things that sort of pushed us over the edge. But now we know what caused it. What are we going to do to fix it? So this is my oil build, okay? Now, a couple of things I do need to talk about just to make sure we've got them covered is this oil build, it's designed to be self-sufficient, Okay, it doesn't have any external inputs. I don't bring coal in to make steam or anything else like that to run the oil build. It is very, very self-sufficient. In fact, the only imports into this system is, well, water, of course, limestone to get rid of the extra slag into, get rid of the extra sulfur into slag, and that's it, actually. Water and limestone. Yeah. And technically it does a whole lot of things. Like it has spare naphtha that we then can turn into rubber. And if that backs up, it then creates power. This is what this little power plant is as part of the build. So let's just talk through what we have currently and how we need to change things. So also, in case you're curious, I will link up in the top right hand corner. I called this particular build the waste not want not build because literally it wastes nothing. It recycles everything it produces. It's also modular. That was the other thing. So technically, if I was really worried, I could just double the build, but I want to keep things interesting, so I want to change up the build rather than being lazy and just doubling it, because now we have space. When we built this originally, this was all the land we had to do oil on, hence why it's sort of crammed in rather than built in a nice modular fashion left to right. So let's talk about this first. All right. We are obviously bringing in crude oil. We have the distillery stage 1, which brings in 54 crude oil and creates medium and heavy, and sour water. Medium comes straight here and makes diesel. We know about the diesel. Diesel flows out to the diesel pipe. It also makes light oil, and then we take light oil and we turn that into naphtha and fuel gas. So the heavy oil. Heavy oil, let's talk about that first. I have 4 modules here, which means I have a total of 24 heavy oil, which goes straight into this boiler. This boiler makes steam. We need steam to keep the system running. Cool, we know about that. The sour water goes over the back. We'll talk about that in a second. And our other 2 outputs being naphtha and fuel gas. The fuel gas comes over to the right-hand side and is perfectly ratioed out to make diesel, okay? So we take one of the waste products from here and we convert it into diesel. The sour water waste product, I guess you could call it, we bring over here. We add a touch more steam to the system and we convert the sour water into sulfur, ammonia and water to then bring the water back into the original boilers to save us on some of the water. The ammonia we bring over here and we convert it into fertilizer, and then take our fertilizer, convert it into fertilizer 2 with the sulfur that also came out of this system. Yeah, so then we can take the fertilizer 2 and go and plant plants and all that sort of stuff. And then finally the excess sulfur comes over the end and we convert that into slag just so we get rid of it. On top of that, we're actually getting sulfur from a whole bunch of places now with all the exhaust scrubbing that we're doing. So that's how a majority of the system works. The only thing I didn't cover was the naphtha. The naphtha goes to 2 different places, 3 different places actually. It comes into this balancer and it prioritizes into 2 different directions. One is into the left to run a boiler, because to run this system we need 9 steam plus 6 steam plus 3 steam, which is a total of 15, and then I need 4 lots of that, which is 60 steam. Plus I need 6 steam here and here, which is 72 steam. Now the heavy oil we spoke about earlier, that comes here and we burn that off. That gives me 48 steam, but I'm still a couple of units short. I need an extra 24. So this naphtha comes in here and we burn half of that to get the amount of steam we need. Well, half of that. We make 12, 24, 48. We make 48 and we burn, what's that, 15, 18 of it. 18 of it to make steam. The rest of the naphtha comes this way and it goes into, well, originally into rubber. Okay, because the rubber recipe, naphtha, sulfur, rubber, is much better than the original recipe we were using, which was what? Diesel, coal, and rubber, and wastewater. Yeah, so it's a lot more efficient, okay? So we bring that over here. But we've just replaced that with the ethanol recipe because I have a whole bunch of ethanol from plants. So technically, I don't use the naphtha to do that anymore. So we can remove that outright and we can toggle the direction on that pipe and we'll run it backward. Can I also remove you just so we can tidy up? Yes to yes. Okay, and remove that. All right. So the rest of the naphtha that comes into this balancer, after it's been prioritized off to there and off to rubber, that leaves, okay, that I need to look at. That leaves the one last place it can go to, which is into this boiler. And rather than flaring off the extra naphtha or something like that, which we could do, we could run it to a flare and I could create 24 air pollution and that could be the end of it. I run the naphtha in here, which creates 48 exhaust, which is actually less pollution than the 24 air pollution from the flare. And then it outputs steam. And the steam, of course, we run to a power plant and then we recover, originally we recovered the steam via the one cooling tower. I've had to enable the other one because we're now not making rubber and we're just venting that steam off. But it makes us a little bit of power. And because these are set to priority 1, it means they always work. They always work. Okay, we need to look at that. Why are you... I know you're full. You are full because the dumping towers don't tell me if you can't dump slag, which is a problem. And slag, and that means where we were dumping is done. Okay, I need to edit the area and change it up for that area. And where's your friend? And change that up for that area as well. We're slowly getting there. I've already set this to level 2. Nobody's set to dump there yet, but we're about to start dumping soil here. So we can extend out the farms for future episodes. All right. So that's how the system's been set up currently. Now, when we get the technology for the distillation stage 3, it's in the tech tree right here. Naphtha processing. Straight after that, there is the technology naphtha reforming. Now, reforming gives us 2 new researches. One is naphtha plus steam, which we can access very easily into fuel gas and sour water. Now, it's going to use 24 naphtha, and if we come back to here, I'm producing 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12, total of 48. So I'm making 48 naphtha. Let's go back into, wrong button, research. So I'm producing 48 naphtha. If I ran it into this recipe, I would get 2 lots of 30 fuel gas. And if we look at the fuel gas, for every 1 bit of fuel gas I put in, I get back 50% of that as diesel. So I'm going to lose half the mass again if I run it through this recipe. So I'm going to go from 48 naphtha down to, and that also assumes I don't use any of the naphtha to create steam, which technically we need more steam for this system. So it's something you need to keep in mind. I'd have to put in like a coal boiler or something to create the extra steam, and then I'd probably have to add some sort of balancer to make sure we prioritize the steam from heavy oil first, and then this second. It'd be some sort of mess. But we would get 48 naphtha would turn into 60 fuel gas, which would then turn into 30 diesel. And on top of that, 30 diesel, because we get 60 fuel gas, and then we convert that to 30 diesel. On top of that, this does 36 at a time. So it's not going to be a neat recipe where I just add 2 of these and they run full time and that's it. I'd add 2 of these and they'd run most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. So that was one option. The other option we get is the cracking unit. So the other recipe in the cracking unit, which is 18 naphtha plus 12 hydrogen, which we don't actually, we can make, but we can't make efficiently. And that gives us a lot more diesel. So we're going 18 up to 24 rather than 24 down to up to 30 and then down to 15 when we convert it to diesel. So it's a more efficient recipe. Plus it gives us some fuel gas, which of course the fuel gas we could also turn into more diesel technically. We know fuel gas halves in value when you convert it to diesel. So it'd be 24 plus technically 3 diesel, total of 27. Yes, I'd have to add another cracking unit to do fuel gas and diesel. It's not going to be terribly neat ratio-wise. That's probably the best way of putting it. So that would be an option, except I have to make hydrogen. Now, hydrogen, I don't have a lot of options to make hydrogen. I could take the ammonia that we're getting out of the sour water that we're currently converting into fertilizer. I could use that, which is a viable option to get a certain amount of hydrogen. And we need 12 hydrogen to process the naphtha. And we get out 12. So we could do that. That'd be a perfectly viable swap in. It just means that we're going to make half the amount of fertilizer, which means half the amount of fertilization of the plants, which means potentially lower crops. Or I have a second option, and that is to use a tiny bit of water with and produce a lot of oxygen and a tiny amount of hydrogen. And as I need 12 per run, I'd need like 8 plants producing hydrogen. And the problem is the electrolyzers cost 100 megawatts each. Yeah, 100 megawatts each. No, 100 kilowatts each. 100 kilowatts each. And I'd need 8 of them. So it'd be 800 kilowatts. Now, until you have a proper power plant up and running, not really a viable option. but we now have a proper power plant up and running. So my plan is we're going to do this recipe in a cracking unit, and we're going to be doing it processing that 12 plus that 12 plus that 12, which is a total of 36. Because we're using a total of 36, it means I need 2 of these to process exactly 36 naphtha, which also means I'm going to get out exactly, I'm going to need exactly 24 hydrogen, which means I need exactly 16 of the electrolyzers, and then that's going to give me 24 diesel doubled, 48, plus the extra fuel gas. Now the extra fuel gas, we have a few options of what we can do with it, but we'll get to that. Now, it does mean that I still have 12 naphtha in the system, which I'm retaining onto. And the reason I'm retaining onto that is we still need to create that steam, the steam we spoke about at the start. So we know we need 24 steam currently to run, no, we need 72 steam to run the system. After we subtract the 48 that we're using for heavy oil, which we're not changing up at all, it means that I still need to find the extra 24 steam. If I hold on to 12 naphtha, and we run it into this recipe, it means rather than getting 48 steam every minute, we're putting in 1/3 the amount of naphtha, so we get 1/3 the amount of steam. So we're going to get 16 steam. I need 24. I'm still 8 short. Cool. 8 short is something we can probably cover, and we could cover that with a boiler running coal, or we could cover it with that tiny bit of extra fuel gas we get. Fuel gas are 1-to-1. So I'm getting, if we go back into this, I'm going to get 6, I'm going to get 12 fuel gas with another boiler or a manipulative JD. We could put 12 fuel gas in, and which means it would give us 12 steam. We only needed 8, so we technically end up with 4 extra steam. Now I can't leave the 4 steam in the system, otherwise things will break, but I can get rid of it, and that's going to be our plan. So with all that out of the way, we need to retrofit this, which means I'm going to put 2 of these, because we know we need 2 of them, and they're going to be running this recipe. Copy and paste. Okay, so we're going to have diesel come out here, we're going to have fuel gas come out here, we're going to need to put naphtha and hydrogen, naphtha and or hydrogen, well, naphtha and hydrogen in the rear. Alright, so first things first, let's bring out our diesel pipe. Now, the way this has all been set up is it's on a manifold, so certain pipes run the whole length. So this is diesel, and it runs the whole length straight out. So I know I can just tap into it, and more importantly, I can copy those 2 pipes and slap them right there. Because now we have copy and paste, and it just makes my life so much easier. The other thing I need to do is I need to copy a connector. Yep, and I want a connector in here and in here, because again, it's just going to make my life easier. The fuel gas, we're going to bring out the front, and we're going to leave that right there for the moment. And then hydrogen and naphtha we need to get in. Now, naphtha is this pipe. The problem is it runs to the right. I need to bring it to the left. So we're going to have to plumb that in to come to left. Now, originally the whole system is designed to run, like I said, on a manifold. And it's designed... I want to plug in down there. It's also designed to clip together nicely. Now, because I had a situation when we built this where this was all water, I couldn't build it left to right. I had to build the front and then build the back behind it. Consequently, I have pipes that shouldn't be here in the way. So my naphtha is going to look a bit like a mess, but that's okay. We just need to get it to work for now with those 2 pipes. All right, so, I need to toggle the direction on that. Yeah, and technically toggle the direction on that, but we can wait for that. All right. Next thing I need to do is I need to get the hydrogen. So we're going to come over to this water pipe. Now, this water pipe comes from the good old power plant. The good old power plant, which is first power plant makes some water, and then the second power plant takes the water we're making from the first water power plant and makes more water from the water power plant, and then outputs all the water into this pipe, which we're in theory using via this balancer to run oil. And we can see this window's moving, and this window is moving, and this window's not moving. So we are actually using all the water from the power plant that makes water to run the oil. And if it at all backs up, we have the output pipes that just dump clean water out to the sea, which there's water in the pipe right now, because we're actually producing too much water in the power plant that makes water rather than and not using the water. Yeah, that's the words I'm looking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into General Machines, electrolyzer. I need 16 of these, so we're going to put in 1. We're going to set the recipe correctly, hopefully, and copy. So that's 4. That's now 8. I need to do some pipes. So we're going to bring a pipe right across the top. Oh, copying and pasting the recipe failed entirely. All right. And then I want to bring the oxygen out to here. And out to here. And the hydrogen, we're just going to go up to that pipe. Okay. And the reason I'm doing this is it's quick and easy to put together. And we're going to need to have 16 of these overall. And it's also very, very temporary. I should mention why it's temporary. Yeah, let's do that real quick. Research-wise, so we're going to be making hydrogen. Now, literally the next technology I was looking at doing to redo oil properly was to actually have a better recipe for making hydrogen, which we're going to start that research. At the same time, it'll also let us crack heavy oil, the one that we're currently using to make steam automatically. We're going to add that to the list as well, because I really want to have all the bits and pieces together to eventually upgrade oil. Oil is going to move from the current system we have to a smart system, where a smart system outputs all... Oh, it's coal. We're probably important to keep coal digging. It's going to output all sorts of all the different liquids that oil can possibly output, hopefully in a smart way where it prioritizes, like, you know, make sure you never run out of diesel and make sure that you have enough of this liquid and that liquid. But at the same time, auto cracks from one to the next, you know. It doesn't just prioritize making diesel. It makes diesel, and then it makes naphtha, and then it makes fuel gas, and then it makes all the different liquids we can think of that we might need in an oil build. Problem is that build's not ready, and I don't have the research. So we're going to add that to the research queue, and obviously I need to unpause some labs so we have that research in the future. We're probably going to need to get a few other things done first, because all cracking is very power expensive, and I don't really want to push my power limits too far. At the same time, we're going to need a tank. We're going to need a tank to just buffer up the clean water just in case scenario. Which we're going to tag in right there. Can I just get that built? That way at least it can start filling up. Alright, so we have oxygen and oxygen. And those two oxygens, I'm just going to put a smokestack on because we don't need the oxygen. So we're just going to vent it off. Also going to put in another storage box right here, let's say. And that's going to be for hydrogen number 1. And... can I remove that? And hydrogen number 2. And again, like I said, temporary build, so I don't really care where it goes. Alright, last thing I need to do is bring the hydrogen. Can you go to that top? And we'll just take you straight to height 3. That way, hopefully, trucks can get underneath. Bring you to there, and then we're going to plug that into that pipe down there. Alright, so if I've done this correctly, we should be able to build all of this, which is going to use a whole lot of workers and a whole lot of power. Helps if I set some recipes, probably. I just need those pipes on the end. But you know, rush to uni build things, and I overbuilt slightly. That's all right. We'll just uni unbuild them. All right. So we have. Actually, no, we do have a couple of workers left over. Whether it's enough to also run cracking, I don't know. So you don't have any water currently. We don't have a balancer, which could haunt us in the future. But for the moment, I'm just going to pause that pipe. If I pause that pipe, it means any fluid that comes down here has to flow into this tank, and then has to flow in here to make our hydrogen. Our hydrogen is going to come across to here eventually, and we're going to build all of that. Now, there's a couple of other things I need to do. Obviously, I need to get the naphtha over here, and I need to deal with the fuel gas. So let's start with the fuel gas, because that's probably... Did I set a recipe on these? I did. You've already got hydrogen in you. All right, so you're fine. Fuel gas. Again, this is a temporary pipe. Okay, so I'm just going to bring it over to here. No. I had R mode on. You're not meant to connect to things. I didn't have R mode on. All right, R mode on. I'm going to bring it over to here. And I'm just going to leave you there for a minute. All right. So, naphtha. All right, first off, we're going to remove that pipe. Don't need that pipe anymore. It can go away. That was the one going over to rubber. As for the naphtha itself, we need this one to keep going to the right, because we're going to burn that off to make steam. Which means I need this pipe to pause. I don't need liquid coming from this guy going to the right anymore. This pipe, we're going to toggle. This pipe, we're going to toggle direction as well. And that means this pipe, I'm going to toggle direction as well, which should bring all my naphtha over here to hopefully run, yep, there's naphtha in the pipe, run these two guys and create our fuel gas and our diesel. Now, diesel, we're outputting 24 and 24, which is 48. Power. I forgot to do this. Okay. If you're running, that gives me another 5 megawatts worth of power. We're definitely up 12, so I'm going to turn you off auto balance so you run all the time. Because you're running all the time, then we're outputting about 12 megawatts onto the system. I need to turn you off auto balance as well. Yeah. So with you off, we're going to have our output cannot go below 12.5 megawatts. Basically, that's what I've done by swapping you over off auto balance and making sure you run all the time. Also at the same time, so because this uses its own water, I need to also make sure it's buffered. And although these guys are buffered, that seems like a flaw. Yeah. Whoa, that would probably help if you had steam. Yes. All right, so although these guys are buffered with water, technically the steam pipes are not buffered, which could cause an issue long term when if I need to suddenly turn this on. So we need to leave it run for a little while, have it add more water into the pipes. Once it's done that a few times, we should be able to slowly enable more and more of the power plant. Anyway, back to this conversation. So we're outputting 24 and 24 diesel, which is 48, plus we're outputting another 18, which means we're automatically over 60 pipe. So I need to upgrade definitely this pipe to a faster version, and then by the time we get to here, we're up to like 80, and then 80, 120, 130. The numbers keep going up. So it actually means that I am over a 200 pipe for my oil. So I need to upgrade a bunch of these pipes to go to the 450, because we're actually going to, originally on the system we were bringing in 216 crude oil. So we're bringing in 54 times by 4, 216, and we were getting out 180 diesel. Okay, with the cracking and everything else we had existing. We're now going to change that up, so we're still bringing in 216 crude oil, but we're actually going to get out 228 diesel. So we're getting out more diesel than the crude oil we put in the first place, which is perfect. Plus, we're also going to get out the fertilizer and the slag and a few other things. So, you know, it's definitely a well-working system. I don't think I need to upgrade you, but I'm going to do it anyway, just so I'm sure. All right, so that gets us to here. Now we have some fuel gas I need to deal with. I need to deal with that now, and we need to talk about naphtha. So naphtha goes... Now we only have enough naphtha, just enough naphtha. No, hang on, cancel. All right, naphtha is going to go into this tank. All right, at the moment we're burning through extra naphtha because I don't have the fuel gas hooked up. But what I can do is I have this little boiler here. Now this little boiler needs to add steam into the steam system because we don't technically have enough fuel to keep providing the steam we have currently. So what I want to do is remove this power plant, which did almost nothing, but not quite nothing. And you are a very special boiler with 2 pipes plugged into your input connector. And the fact that it's a connector means I can get away with doing this because you can only have one liquid in a pipe at a time. I want to remove that pipe, which was hooked up to heavy oil. So this boiler could burn either heavy oil or it could burn naphtha. And I want to plug it into this pipe instead. And now you're going to have the option of doing either naphtha or the tiny bit of fuel gas that we mentioned earlier. The tiny little bit of fuel gas that gets us over the magic number that we needed to have enough fuel gas. So I also need to have a balancer in here, because we're going to have to priority out our steam, which is going to go from there to this pipe. Now this pipe is plugged into this coal boiler, which we just needed to prime the system. Once the system was primed, we never needed to run this pipe ever again. So we're going to build you, we're going to have you a priority out to go this way, and you're going to provide all of, what was it, 8? We need 8 steam and we've got 12 fuel gas, so we make 12 steam. So you're going to produce 8 steam every minute, which means you're going to take a lot of minutes before you fire once on this system. Probably means I should upgrade the pipes so they have a larger internal buffer. Just something to keep in mind, that you can't put steam in a tank, But if you upgrade the pipes, just think of them as long, like very, very long tanks. All right, the extra little bit of steam, I'm going to run straight into the cooling tower, mainly because the cooling tower's here. If the cooling tower wasn't here, I would literally just put it into a vent and vent it in space. You're going to prioritize that way, and that's probably very full. Yep, because we have a whole lot of spare fuel gas in the pipe that we need to burn off. But with those small modifications done, it now means that, yes, we're up to 200 and what? 228 diesel, which means you're backed up because you can't burn the naphtha. Can't burn the naphtha because I didn't get rid of the fuel gas. I've now got rid of the fuel gas. You're fine. You have plenty of hydrogen. You have plenty of water. That pipe can be unpaused because we're not using a lot of water. This is like, it's 16 machines. They use 0.8 water each, so we're using like 12 water or something. We're using less all. But with those two added, that should give us enough diesel. The only thing I have to do is, where's that diesel plant? It's going to go to here, and then from there on, it's very, very full, and that's stopping the output from oil. So we need to upgrade the pipes to the next tier, and then if we bring a 450 pipe to there, that should fill it. You have a 200 pipe which is hooked into you and you and you. You know what? I'm going to upgrade you as well, just to be sure that we definitely have enough diesel flowing around to the last couple of cargo depots. But with those small modifications done, we're now in very, very positive diesel territory again. And like I said, we're doing the research. We've already done the very first step, so I could just put in hydrogen production from fuel gas instead, which we have fuel gas here that we're currently converting into diesel. We could stop converting to diesel, make hydrogen more efficiently, to then use hydrogen, an efficient form of hydrogen to make our to then crack our naphtha into the diesel and some fuel gas, which again we'd pump back into the system to make more hydrogen. Yep. But those sort of changes and those sort of modifications are going to happen in not this episode, but another episode. I just need to get this done. We've done this. We're back up and running. You technically don't matter anymore. You really don't matter. I don't even need you anymore, but I'm not going to change infrastructure we don't need to change. You're going to still dump out your excess water. You're going to run fuel gas when you have enough in the pipe, which is like right now. If ever anything goes wrong, naphtha will overflow into here, which it shouldn't ever happen. And that pipe's been upgraded to give you plenty of leeway. The only problem I may have is steam. Steam is a horrible thing. Just how we've got it set up. Technically, I think I need to swap you to go the right. Yeah, because I've got two separate... You need steam and you need steam, and you guys input here and here. So what I actually need to do is... whatever, it works as it is. It's just the dodgy way I happen to have steam hooked up because I had to build the second part of the build behind rather than in line. But yeah, with that pipe paused, that definitely forces 12 of the naphtha this way to run this boiler. The fuel gas still passes to the left where it meant to run over there. And that is our oil build complete, which means I need to end this episode here. I'm going to, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed. I will see you guys in the very next episode where we finally get back to what I wanted to work on, which is Medical 2. I want to get Medical 2 in, done, and tucked away before we can work on other things like better oil or more contracts or nuclear or biodiesel. There's lots of options out there, but they're all for future episodes. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the very next episode. All right, bye.